The sergeant was running the phones early. This meant that she didn't have an officer to run the day room. People would sit and dial, so the phone didn't even make it to me. I was pissed. I just wanted the day to end. I was having an off day. The conversation Chris and I had was weighing heavily on me. How was he able to cope so well with everything that had happened? Why didn't he trick on Nicole? Was it out of fear, righteousness? Was it maybe because he knew he was screwed anyway, so why take her down with him? I had so many questions, but I was reluctant to know the part about his daughters. Did he kill them? Did she kill them? Was it someone else? How would I feel about him if I knew? Would I judge the man? I knocked on the wall and called Chris to the electrical outlet on the wall from the cell next door. I have to know and I will not judge. Did you kill the girls, yes or no? I asked hesitantly. He went silent. The silence was thick in the air. It was deafening silence. I should have cast myself in that grave that was dug for them. I decided to ask him the same question, but from a different angle. Did you help with the girls? I probed. He took a long, deep breath and seemed to hold it. Yes, I did. He admitted to me. Jezebel, I asked. Yes, Chris answered. I knew it. Inmate Watts implicating his old mistress is a bit suspicious. He could be telling the truth, but why now? The recreation yard at Dodge Correctional Institution was very large. It was a big gravel track to run around. 3.5 times equals 1 mile. There is a baseball field and 3 basketball courts. There are also pull-up bars and some dip bars. Chris and I were both walking around the track. He was far ahead of me while I was talking to some people on our unit. It was hot outside, so most of us had our shirts off. I jogged ahead to catch up with Chris and noticed something was off with him. Most people couldn't read Chris the way I could. He was so level no matter what. However, spending 17 or more hours each day talking with him really helped me learn to understand him. You good, bro? I asked Chris and was walking beside him. His face was flushed and he continued to look down while clenching his jaw tightly. It's nothing really, he replied nonchalantly. What happened? I asked, knowing he was holding something back. Just some guy yelled some stuff out of a window, he finally admitted, and looked over at the window behind us. What did he say? I asked. Insistently. He called me a daddy, he told me. I never heard that name before that day, so it took me a minute before it clicked with me. Those windows that are opened when we walk around the bend? I asked, pointing at the windows we would walk past after walking around the track. I noticed there were a flock of birds going past. I began to wish I was a bird so I could fly out of Dodge. As we passed the pull-up bars and dip bars, I told Chris to remain silent because I would take care of this. You want to yell that stuff again? I challenged the guy that had yelled those words to Chris. He stepped inside the window and hid beside it. It was pathetic. When I catch you in the hallway, I'm breaking your nose, I promise. I looked over at Chris and we continued around the track. See, that's how it's done, I said. He just looked at me with raised eyebrows. Geez, man, was all he managed to say at the moment. Chris was in prison for the long haul. He was going to have to learn how to handle these situations, even more so than other inmates because of the attention attached to his name. After we went around the track without any disturbances, the guard came over the loudspeaker and announced that rec was over. We were on the far end of the track, so we had to cut across the field to reach the gate quicker to go back inside. We walked slowly because our 40 minutes or less was precious to us. On the way inside, this old short, bald-headed CO told me to tuck my shirt in. I decided I wasn't going to do it, so he kept yelling that order as we walked further away from him, towards our unit. As we entered Unit 11, I was again told to tuck my shirt in, and again I refused. We were headed to our cells anyways. Dodge was so petty. Who tucks their t-shirt into some short-ass shorts? I went into my cell next to Chris. There was nothing but a cot and a mattress, a pile of books and a stack of paperwork. I had some canteen and a little bit of clothes that Chris had given to me. It really sucked living the way I had to because of my non-prisoner status. I heard a light tapping on the wall coming from the cell next door, so I grabbed my chair and posted it by the electrical outlet on the wall. This outlet was connected to his outlet on his wall adjacent cell. The walls were damp from the humidity. "I appreciate you telling this guy off for me," Chris thanked me. What he said was highly disrespectful, so no problem, I replied. "What if we do see that guy again?" he asked me. "Then I will do like Jesus would do," I replied. "And what would Jesus do?" Chris asked, almost expecting my next response. "He would slap him on the cheek and put his nose on the other cheek," I confirmed. "I'm certain Jesus said that a different way," he laughed. "Well, that's how I interpreted it. As it was written, let it be done," I promised. You know, I thought all that stuff was in the past until that guy yelled that stuff. I remember my first 40 days in Dodge, I was all over the news. They had to move me into a back cell hall that kept me separate from everyone, he explained. "Well, you graduated to the big hallway, and as long as I'm here, you're straight. You'll have a-holes, but some solid people will embrace you. A lot of bad characters will try to embrace you too, so it's better to stay to yourself sometimes," I informed him. "I have a question, sort of off topic. What was it like being a dad? Because I don't have any kids," I asked. "It's great, you know. It's the best thing. You go about life for them. You get to buy them gifts, see the look on their faces to bring them cheer. For something as simple as ice cream, being a dad is a big responsibility, a great accomplishment overall," he expounded. I wondered how he could kill them if he felt as he did. I know I never could, no matter how I felt about some woman. Yeah, perhaps one day I'll find that special someone that I can build a family with. Dylan has obviously taken a liking to Chris, and he wants to understand how someone so humble and likable could have done such a thing to his own flesh and blood, his family, his babies. The why is something we will never understand, yet Dylan seeks answers. Inmate Watts is uncomfortable with people probing. I'm not sure how Inmate Watts copes with what he has done and his new reality of prison life. I know as inmates do their time, they do adapt and begin to find some purpose in life. Family annihilators have been around for quite some time. I believe what sets the Watts case apart from others was the perception of a perfect life. Shanann Watts shared her life with the world, and we all got a glimpse of what seemed to be a happy household. But beware and pay attention. We don't always know the person we decide to share our lives with. We can love unconditionally and think we are loved as such, but then a weak man like Chris bottles up his feelings. Any man that can do something like this to his family doesn't deserve to breathe the same air or walk amongst us. Chris Watts was and always will be an opportunist, just like Grant D'Amato, who unalived his father, mother, and brother on January 24th of 2019 while attempting to stage it as a unaliving suicide, putting the gun in his brother's hand. Grant was addicted to a camgirl site and was stealing money from his family to access a model's webcam, paying her up to $200,000. His family made him seek therapy, and after a week of treatment, Grant came home and got into a big argument with his father when his dad found out that he was still in contact with the Bulgarian model, who went by the alias Sylvie. This argument was revealed to be the motive. Masak Damaz, an evangelical Christian, unalived his wife and 5 children at their home in Collier County, Florida in 2009 after his wife threatened to divorce him. Rachel David, a Mormon from Salt Lake City, pushed her children off of an 11th floor balcony, then jumping off herself 3 days after her husband took his life in 1978. Family annihilators are often motivated by extreme emotional distress, financial difficulties, mental illness, or domestic violence. Throughout history, there have been infamous familial cases across the world, often shocking communities due to their brutality and scale. They say that time heals. In that case, I should have been in top condition. However, my arms were killing me on the preacher curl bar. Chris and I were working biceps and triceps. I weighed 165 to his 207, but I was lifting everything he could. I was still strong from all the time I did in prison and lifting weights. A lot of other inmates just stood around looking confused. Most of the crew on our unit have never been to prison before and didn't know how to use the weights. They watched and observed how we used them, and then they would attempt to imitate us. There was a big window that separated the guards from us, but they could of course watch your every move. I was waiting for my turn on the universal pull-down bar when this guy walked up to me and got close. He was almost in my bubble, staring me down. "You have about 2.3 seconds to get out of my face and tuck your belly in before approaching me," I said to this pot-belly looking biker dude. Suddenly, Chris was beside the guy. "Yeah, I'm gonna wrap this cord around your neck," Chris threatened him, referring to the pull-down bar hanging down loosely. The guy looked at both of us and walked away without saying a word. "We scared him, bro," I nudged Chris. We both looked at each other and laughed. I didn't necessarily need his backup, but it was good in having the knowledge of him having my back. Dylan has been showing inmate Watts how to handle himself. Inmates must demand respect. If other inmates sense fear or know you won't do anything, then an inmate will most definitely be targeted. Some inmates aren't getting any help from the outside, so they look for potential victims, the weak, inmates who they can take advantage of. They will take from them and even extort them for whatever they can get. We finished our workout and walked back to our unit drenched in sweat. The walk back down the long hallway of Dodge to Unit 11 seemed like miles away. My body was solid, though it felt like jelly now. When we got back to our cells, Chris decided he was going to do push-ups. That meant I had to do push-ups too, or he would be the one who outdid me in the workout for the day. After our workout, Chris and I both separately worked on our books. We were writing it on our God's Plan series. So Dylan and Chris bonded through religion. I know it's hard to understand why anyone would want to be friends with someone like Chris, but humans need to socialize. It is a lonely place. People suffer in prison, as they should. It's not meant to be a fun place. When inmates are dealing with the stresses of the same routine day in, day out, and just trying to survive, sometimes we'll make exceptions. I'm not saying that's the case with Dylan here. He seems to genuinely like Chris Watts. In this challenging setting, inmates often form deep and meaningful friendships that serve as coping mechanisms, someone to lean on, and even strategies for survival. The bonds that develop among prisoners are not only reflections of their shared experiences, but also highlight the need for companionship, trust, and emotional connection, even in the most difficult circumstances. I could not get comfortable unless you can pack all of your stuff and be ready to move in less than 60 seconds. Then you are not comfortable. You aren't cozy in prison like the majority of inmates. The complacency of those around me kept me from becoming just like them. I did not want to become yet another statistic. The walls around me, the fences, the ignorance of the majority, they all motivated me to strive to be better. If there was anyone that got me, it was Chris. He didn't see me how most judgmental individuals did. We kept it strictly Matthews 7:1-2. Do not be judged, so that you will not be judged. For in the way you judge, you will be judged, and by your standard of measure, it will be measured to you. So you get back what you put out, which kept us on our toes. Before we knew it, we were ending service in prayer. I started working out and brought my weight down to 168. Women were noticing me, and I met Nicole. She was just everything my wife wasn't. Nice and not a control freak. And we could make decisions together. Wait, how long were you guys together and messing around? I thought it was 5 weeks. We knew each other for a while, but we didn't start messing around until 6 weeks before. Yeah, I was not thinking. We knew each other for a while. We ate together, we had chemistry, and I fell into temptation. Kind of like the Garden of Eden, I compared. So how did she not get wrapped up in any of this, I asked him. Well, there was some complications with that, he said. Like what, I asked. It took him a while to respond. Chris wells and pauses a lot before revealing. She didn't exactly do much to incriminate herself, Chris admitted. I don't think I want to know, bro. I really don't. I didn't want my opinion of him to change. If he told me what I thought he was going to tell me, how could he put his girls in cold blood? It just made no sense at all. His little girls were 3 and 4 years old. They loved him and he loved them. Just know it wasn't my hand actually doing it, he managed to say. He told me that before. I still couldn't comprehend what he meant by it. The traps on our door are being popped for dinner. Time to eat. It's all I managed to mutter to him. So as you know, I never read the whole book in its entirety. I would if I had permission from the author. I believe Dylan is a free man today, and I hope this time he can stay free. I find his experiences with Chris and Dodge interesting. Sometimes our environment makes it damn near impossible to stay free, whether it's problems with substances or just trouble with the wrong crowd. Living in a toxic environment makes it that much harder. I had to get the hell out of Dodge and move to another state. When all else fails, it's best to find a different place, out of sight, out of mind.